All right, and thank you all for being here. It's great to be outdoors on a beautiful Saturday morning in Colorado. It's good to have you with us today. Welcome. As Ms. Brown shared with you, my name is Dave Risendal. I currently serve at St. Peter Lutheran Church in Greenwood Village. But I'm here today not to speak on behalf of my congregation. I serve a delightfully diverse congregation, and we are about as diverse politically as in any other way. I don't speak for all of them. I'm here today to share from my own personal conviction that it's essential for people who are living in community to organize ourselves in such a way that nobody has to go without quality health care services. I'd like to begin today by telling you a story. That's what we preachers usually do. In my tradition in the fall, we organize our own congregation and talk a little bit about funding for the year. And so we make visits to folks and encourage our people to think about how they'll support our congregation financially in the year to come. A couple of years ago, we were in the midst of doing that, and I shared with the congregation a story about a very wealthy man who was a member of a Christian congregation. This congregation was embarking on some big plans, and so they sent the fundraising committee out to this man's home, and they asked him if he would consider making a significant contribution to their cause. Well, the man paused for a moment, and he said to the committee, he said, "Do you know that I have a daughter who has very severe emotional and intellectual challenges, and she has to live in a 24-hour care facility?" And with some chagrin, they said, "Well, no, we didn't know that." And then he went on to say, he said, "Did you know that my mother has a debilitating illness and has to pay for 24-hour nursing care in her home?" And they said, even a little bit more embarrassed, "Well, no, we didn't know about that either." And he said, "Did you know that my business partner had a house just destroyed by a tornado and has to rebuild from the ground?" And finally, feeling terribly sorry for this unfortunate man, they say, "No, I'm really sorry, we didn't know about that either." And the man said to them, he said, "Well, you know, if I didn't give them a dime, what makes you think I'm going to give any money to the church?" I like this story because of what we can learn from the way that this particular individual misunderstood the opportunities that lay before him. First of all, this wealthy man misunderstood what it means to live in community. By definition, to live in community means to share a common life. In the 17th century, John Donne said that no man is an island unto himself, and he was right. To be community means to be in communion with one another. It means to be committed to one another. It means to be invested in one another. We live in a time and a place where people imagine that we can live independent from one another. There's a sense of rugged individualism that permeates the West. But in times of difficulty, in times of challenge, we discover that this attitude does not serve us as well. It wasn't so many years ago, here in our own community, that we used to see many vehicles that had a bumper sticker that said, "We are all Columbine." Bumper stickers that made a public statement that none of us are islands to ourselves, but that we are bound to one another in community and have not only the responsibility, but the privilege of caring for one another and advocating for one another's well-being. In my tradition, we study the writings of a first-century apostle named Paul. Paul had a long and tense relationship with a group of believers who lived in the Greek city of Corinth. This was a group that was experiencing great division, and their division was lived out with suspicion and antagonism and disrespect. And Paul encouraged them to think about their community as if it were a human body, where every part of the body is valuable to the whole of the body. And as Paul said, if the hand is in disease, the whole body is in disease. If the foot experiences trauma, the entire body experiences trauma. That was helpful advice for those first century Corinthians, and it's helpful advice for us today as we consider what it means to live in community. The truth is, when one among us is not well, we are all not well. And we ignore the disadvantage of our neighbor at our own peril. The character of a community, the character of the community is revealed by how it tends to the most vulnerable ones in its midst. And if we are to be an expression of true community, We must make sure that everyone among us has access to quality health care services. The wealthy man in my opening story misunderstands what it means to live in community. He also misunderstands what it means to be wealthy. In my tradition, we speak of what it means to be blessed, to be a blessing. We believe that everything we have, everything we know, everything we experience comes to us from the hand of a gracious God, and we further believe that it's given to us not just for our own personal betterment, but that it's given also for the benefit of all creation. Consequently, we strive to be faithful in giving as we are able to help those who have less than we have. Now, I don't expect all of you to share my religious perspectives, but I do invite you to consider that the abundance of wealth creates for us an abundance of opportunity to make a difference in the lives of those who are in need, to promote a sense of true community with those who live with us in this world. We who are starting out this journey through the 21st century together live amidst unprecedented affluence. We have an unprecedented ability also to make a difference for those who are most vulnerable in our society. Let us see our individual blessings not as possessions to be used just for our own personal betterment, but let us also see our individual blessings as an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of those who are in greatest needs. If there are those among us who don't have access to quality health care, the mantle falls upon those of us who are more fortunate, those of us who are more affluent, to organize ourselves in such a way that changes this. The character of a community is revealed by how its most fortunate members reach out beyond themselves and make a difference in the lives of the most vulnerable ones among them. The wealthy man in my opening story misunderstands what it means to live in community. He misunderstands what it means to be wealthy. Finally, he also misunderstands what it means to live in difficult times. If his story had played out differently, if he had been generous with his daughter and with his mother and with his business partner, the opportunity to be generous with his church in the midst of a difficult time is for him an opportunity to make a strong statement about what in life is most important to him.